So we've looked at some vocabulary for reflective writing, and we've identified different components, the different stages of reflective writing. It's very useful for us to consider some limitations of reflective writing. And Habermas makes a very significant contribution to the discussion here, because what he talks about is the reflective practitioner perhaps entering into some self-deception around the reflection that they're undertaking. Let's look at an example of this to put it into perspective. What can happen in terms of reflection is that there's a difference between the teacher's perception of what happened and what really happened in the classroom. So if we're looking at a teacher who is perhaps worried about the pacing of a lesson and the amount of material that is being covered in a lesson, and maybe worried about not covering all of the required material within a particular time frame, identifies or has a perception about the problem, which is, well, I have poor time management, which perhaps on the surface seems quite logical. What could be the real answer to this is that the teacher, Mr. Brown in this instance, is causing a problem within the class because of the way the class is being controlled. Maybe there's too much control, or maybe not enough control in terms of getting through the actual lesson plan. So the problem is actually not about poor time management, but about the teacher's approach to teaching. And what Mr. Brown in this instance might reflect is that any sort of questioning that he would do in the class with the students would reduce the amount of time that the students have to cover the material within the lesson. That would be Mr. Brown's perception based on the perception of the problem of poor time management. If we look at this from a very realistic point of view, where Mr. Brown is perhaps having some sort of control issue in the classroom, then the real reflection from this would be that time management becomes the problem and also the disguise, rather than the ability to actually manage the time. And then the solution, the perception of the solution is, well, we must have better lesson plans in order to be able to make sure we cover the material, and perhaps also not to allow questions to take place in the lesson, whether that's questions between peers or questions from the teacher to the students. This could actually be quite harmful to the learning that's taking place. And actually, the solution to the real situation would not be discovered through this process. There would need to be some other processes to be explored in order to find a solution to Mr. Brown's ability or inability to control what's happening in the classroom. So you can see Habermas is making a significant point here about reflection. It is very much a cognitive internal process, and therefore the teacher needs to consciously think about what is happening and not enter into any sort of potential self-deception about what is happening. Thinking clearly and trying to remain as objective as possible, so that elements of the experience, elements of the perception of what happened in the classroom do not remain unexplored. And in particular, in relation to this critique of reflective writing, is the idea of memory bias. The thing about us as humans is that we do tend to remember the bad experiences. We tend to focus more on the things which disturb us and upset us, cause us some distress, rather than all the good experiences that we have. And therefore, memory bias can be something which can interfere with the reflective writing process, because as a reflective practitioner, we will give too much weight to the bad experiences, the disturbing experiences, rather than giving weight to some of the good experiences that we have also. And consequently, this affects the quality of what we're perceiving in the classroom. If we're focusing always on bad experiences and not looking objectively across all experiences and trying to perceive everything objectively, then the reflective writing gets very skewed and not realistic.